Hi there, and welcome to my video today. I am going to show you 3 common mistakes that people make when they're making jelly prints and how to avoid them. I've been getting quite a few emails and comments on my videos on basic mistakes that people are making, but they don't know how to correct them. So hopefully I'm going to address a few of those for you today. So let's get started. I'm going to use 8x10 gel plate, and I have 2 different size brayers. I use acrylic paints. You can use craft paints. You can use anything basically on a gel plate, but you want to use materials that are going to give you the finish that you're looking for. So it's just going to take some experimenting. So the first mistake people make is using too much paint. This is an 8x10 plate, and I would use about that much, just a little dollop. People think the bigger the plate, the more the paint, but it depends on what you're using your print for. So you can see as I roll this out, this is even a lot of paint. So a lot of times I'll just use a runoff sheet right next to it and take some off. The reason why you don't want to use a lot of paint is because A, it'll take too long to dry, and B, if you're using it as a background, the details won't show through as well. So just removing some of this paint. I tend to use a lot of stencils in my work, so I would just layer it down and then use a piece of paper on top to remove the paint in the stencil. I'm just using basic copy paper just to remove the paint, and you can use the brayer on top. So you can see right here, there's still paint in the stencil on the plate. So you want to try to just get that paint up, or else it's going to show on your actual print. Now we have a basic layer. While that's drying, I just want to show you, this is what it looks like when you use a little too much paint with a stencil. So you can kind of see how it's blurry, it didn't come out clear. When you use too much paint and it doesn't dry in time before you put the next layer over, it smudges as you roll it. Here's another example. Too much paint totally overtook the green color of the flowers. So just something to keep in mind as you're going through your process. Also, you want to think about what you're using your prints for. If you happen to use too much paint at one time, you can just put a piece of paper down and pull it off and use it as a background. You could print over on top of it, so you can actually use the print. The second mistake people make is not allowing the layers to dry. So this is our first layer. It's kind of a mishmash of removed paint and paint still on there. There is going to be a little shadow there of the black where the paint didn't come off the plate. So now I'm just letting this dry for probably I usually give it like a minute or two. And then what you can do is just test it to see if any of the paint comes up when you touch it. So this seems pretty dry at this point. If you let it dry, you'll have a much clearer print. So now I'm just going to add, we're going to do a little light olive green. And again, not too much, and a little aqua green, just a dollop. And even that might be a little too much for the plate because it's 2 different colors. So that's a lot more paint than I would normally use. So a lot of times I'll just remove it as I go if I think I put too much paint on. So you can see that the black isn't really smearing because I gave it enough time to dry. So now we're just going to use a basic piece of copy paper and let it sit. Now this is the third mistake that people make. They do not let the paper absorb all of the paint from the plate, and they pull up their print too soon. So what you want to do is wait. I mean, some people wait like 20 minutes. I don't wait that long. I usually give it like between 3 and 5 minutes and just let it sit. Because what happens is the paint from the black print that we first did is dry. So we have to have that next layer activate that paint again so that it can attach to the paper. Also, you want to keep in mind when you're putting that last layer down or that second layer, you don't want it to be real thick because then what will happen is when you put your paper down, It's just going to pull up that last layer and not the first layer because there's so much paint. It won't be able to adhere all the layers together to the paper. So I let this dry for about 3 minutes. Let's see how it came out. So you can see how the black kind of showed through, but the green and the olive green was very clear because we removed the paint in those areas. It didn't smear because we allowed the black to dry. So this is a good example of a clear print. Just want to give you some more examples. Here's another one that I did, very similar to that. You can see the stencil very clearly because I allowed it to dry, and then I put the turquoise and green on top of it. Here is one that I did before that. This is a fluorescent pink, and this is the light olive green. And when they mixed, they became a little bit of an orange. But the problem was the black wasn't completely dry, so it got a little muddy. So you can see where that made a difference in drying time. Here's another example. I actually rolled these different colors first, and then I removed the paint from the background with a stencil. So that's something you would have to do quickly before the paint actually dries so that you can actually remove the background paint from it. Here's another example. I just rolled the paint first of Payne's gray and a turquoise blue, and then let it dry for a long time because I wanted these crisp lines. And then I put a cream color on top and pulled the whole print. So it gives you an idea when you are a little patient with your printing, it can make some prints that are really pretty. Here is one that I didn't wait long enough and it became, see how it came out a little muddy? So I started with that dark purple and then I rolled some blue and olive green over it. So you can see where it kind of became a little muddy because I didn't wait long enough for it to dry. But if you like that effect, that's how you do it as well. Sometimes we want something that's a little grungy. So these are just things you have to keep in mind when you're printing. What is your purpose for your prints? Do you want to use them as collage papers? Do you want to use them as standalone prints? From there, you can figure out how you're going to make the layers in your prints. So I hope this was helpful to you today. I love jelly printing. It's so much fun. I have so many videos on it, and you can see a few right here. I hope to see you again soon.